Know your place. Keep your place.
Shh, it's the Film Flamers.
Hey everybody, I'm Robert.
And I'm Chris, and we're the Film Flamers.
And it's time for us to Shoot the Flames, our monthly chat show where Chris and I sit down to talk about recent horror news and trailers, some movies that we've watched, and most importantly, comments and questions from you, our listeners.
And we've got another packed month. We've got a lot of questions and comments from y'all, as well as some new reviews.
So let's start with the reviews, shall we? I Am Not a Monster left us a 5-star rating and a review on Apple Podcasts, and he said, I feel like I know these guys. Every episode is a gem. These guys are both knowledgeable and funny, and as a former horror movie podcast host, I appreciate the fact that they release their episodes on a schedule and stick to it. The Black Christmas episode was probably my favorite. Hey,
thank you.
Reach out to us, I Am Not a Monster, and let us know what your horror movie podcast was. I'd like to give it a listen.
Yeah, I was thinking that you must have known, because I don't know who that handle is.
I've never seen that handle before either. So reach out to us on social media, or you can email us. I'd like to know what your podcast was. I really would like to hear what it is.
So our next review comes from KY Bearfuzz, and I'm not sure if that's Kentucky or KY Jelly, so I'll just leave that out there for your imaginations. And he says, thoroughly entertaining. I just started listening to this podcast, and I've been enjoying it very much. Black Christmas from 1974 is my favorite movie, and their recent review did it great justice. These guys definitely love horror. I look forward to your next episode, as well as catching up with past ones.
Oh, thank you. I'm going to assume that it means Kentucky.
It says Bearfuzz, so
I like that part of the handle.
Well, thank you guys, because we have had some dry spells, for reviews, and we got, I think, 3 reviews in January. One was in our last Shooting the Flames, and these 2 are in this one, although we have not gotten any since. So keep those coming, guys, because we really, really, really appreciate it. And it's actually one way you can really help us out.
That's right. We do appreciate it. And to the last 3 reviews, thanks for breaking our dry spell. Keep them coming, everyone. So we've also got some comments on our episodes recently, and let's start with some comments from our Shooting the Flames episode from February last month. At R.L. Terry says, thank you for clarifying The Witcher. I have been trying to get into it, but I cannot seem to get past the first 2 episodes. Glad to know I'm not the only one.
That's one of the things that I guess I said was, of course, The Witcher after like the 4th or 5th episode is just, it just lands and then it starts running, right? And it's all basically just like a setup for the rest of the season and or for the rest of the series, I guess, and just gets better and better, especially with a fantastic finale. So I feel like more and more series are doing this, where there's so much exposition, especially the ones that are based off of novels, where you just have to kind of get through it. I think Game of Thrones suffered from the same thing, and I'm going to mention a series later in this episode that suffers from the same thing. So stay tuned.
And I still need to watch The Witcher. So
yeah. Lachlan from Facebook said, after listening to the episode, I went to look at a trailer for Sonata and I am sold. Also, I am there for Ouija Shark. So we didn't know that Sonata was actually like already released on streaming when I was talking about it last time. So Robert immediately went and watched it. And of course, I'm the one that brought that trailer to the thing. And I still haven't seen it because he told me that it wasn't that good.
Well, yeah, I was super sold on that trailer, and I'm going to talk about the movie a little later on in this episode, and give some more, detail to it. But I mean, I did comment back to Lachlan on Facebook and said it's a little wah-wah, So, So we had a comment from our deep dive on Bram Stoker's Dracula from @TheRealGL Hal Jordan. It's a shame Kenneth Branagh's Frankenstein didn't get the same publicity. I think this and Coppola's Dracula make a fantastic double feature. I can see that.
Yeah, you know what? I've only seen Frankenstein, parts of it, Kenneth Branagh's, and I really do need to go back and see it. And I'd love to. I love the idea of that as a double feature. I really do need to go back and watch that again.
I watched it in the theater when it came out when I was younger, and I don't know if I've seen it since, but I remember liking it quite a bit.
I'm just I'm curious though at your nerdery. Do you understand that handle, the screen name?
Is it the Green Lantern?
Yes. Okay.
My nerdery is intact, okay? I just keep it hidden way, way down so people will like me more.
Yeah.
Just kidding. Oh my God.
Wow. Okay, so from our hot take of Dr. Sleep, at Jae Carbon said, just listen to the movie review for Dr. Sleep, and it's a good frickin' time. Check it out. Definitely check out Dr. Sleep. 5 stars for me. Well, we agree here. So.
Yeah. Thank you, Jay. She has been taking our recommendations very seriously, and she posts them on Twitter just about every time she sits down to watch it. She'll tag us in it. So keep them coming. We always want to know what you think, Jay.
Yeah, we do.
We got a whole slew of comments on our top 10 horror romances episode. Far more than I was expecting, actually.
Yeah,
so I think this kind of hit on a high note.
We were a little nervous that we were kind of reaching there, but it was actually once we sat down to do the research, they just kept coming, and we left a lot on the cutting room floor, so it was fairly easy.
At Eats Mario says, "Oh man, Gomez and Morticia Addams, yes. I'd never really considered horror movie romances before. How about King Kong and Ann Darrow? Would that be considered kind of horror? Or the 2 T-Rexes in the Lost World Jurassic Park returning to save their baby and killing together? Definitely King Kong."
Well, yeah. And you know what? Monster, movie monster horror, that's definitely a subgenre to me in horror, or if not, horror adjacency. So totally. You're right on. Yeah,
and I commented right back to him after he sent that because I am kicking myself now for not thinking about King Kong and Ann Darrow. That's such a classic, iconic horror romance.
It was beauty that killed the beast.
So good. Excellent choices. I haven't seen The Lost World in a very long time, so I don't kind of remember that reference.
I've seen it several times and I don't remember that really, so maybe I just need to revisit.
It's certainly time, yeah.
At R.L. Terry said, "I love your number 1 pick. To be honest, I didn't think of healthy, strong relationships, lol. I was only thinking of forbidden or tragic ones." And that's fair, man. That's a huge component of horror romance is the tragic ones. But we were, the ones that really stuck out were the really strong, healthy, beneficial, and helpful relationships.
Well, maybe not Lestat and Louis. They're not quite so healthy.
But as far as our number 1 pick, or even Morticia,
number 1 and number 2
Gomez.
Spot on, yeah. We really do like the Freelings, and we'll always love Poltergeist for the rest of our lives. At Cody_Landman says, "Some great picks here. Ed and Lorraine Warren are my fave. I also loved Lee and Evelyn in A Quiet Place. You can totally feel the love and protection they have of each other, and the fact that John and Emily are married and naturally adorable adds to it."
That's true.
100% agree.
Yeah, now I'm kind of kicking myself, man.
That's a good choice, right?
Cody.
I know. Good for you, Cody. God, and they are adorable. My God, both of them. They're just one of the prettiest couples. John Krasinski, I think, is just super hot.
Now we've got excellent additions from Isa Mario and Cody Landman, so thank you. Michael from Facebook said, "I agree on the idea of covering Heathers."
I put that on there just so we can go ahead and add it to the docket at some point.
Well, no one's against the idea. We both love Heathers, so fuck me gently with a chainsaw. It's going to happen.
It's going to happen, hopefully pretty soon. So keep posted to the feed, and you'll see it.
We also got the very, very rare email from one of you. And that comes from Nikki. And she was sending us an email with a subject line of dropping a little note of thanks. And she says, "I've been listening to y'all for a few months now, and I keep going back to the older episodes. My hubby and I love watching horror movies together, so I jot down tons of suggestions from you. Last night, we watched It Follows at your suggestion, and I loved it. But they're not all winners. I'm about to watch Dark Crystal series at your recommendation. I loved that movie as a kid. Thanks and keep it up. Love listening, and I love Robert's laugh."
Oh, thank you, Nikki.
It was a very nice note. And we went back and forth a couple times. I still need to respond as of this recording to you, Nikki, but I feel like you've been on Twitter talking with Robert.
And I enjoy that very much. I love it when people, comment and start a whole conversation on there. It makes me happy. And I will say, before we started doing this podcast, I hated my laugh. Always hated my laugh. I thought it was just way too loud and cackly. But when people comment on it now, I'm growing to love it myself. So.
Wow. Okay. Well, that's weird. Yeah, because that's one of the reasons I knew the podcast was going to work, because you have such an interesting, like...
I don't know, every time, because I think everything is funny and I laugh like very often and loudly, and I always think I'm annoying people. So it's good to know that maybe I should continue laughing in public. So
it's horror adjacent. It's very infectious.
So we got a question from @EatsSamario. He says, I hear you and other U.S. podcasters talking about cinemas like the Alamo Drafthouse and AMC. Are they the main cinemas you can choose from? What are your options like? So EatsSamario is from Australia.
Okay.
We actually have a lot of thoughts on movie theaters and chains.
Yes, we do.
Yeah.
So I love my Alamo Drafthouse when I was back in Dallas. And of course, that's a chain that started in Austin. It's slowly growing across the states. I keep waiting for them to open one up in Boston or Boston adjacent. But Alamo Drafthouse is excellent because they don't really show advertisements. It's all about movies, and they have a custom pre-show before a lot of the movies that they show, that they put together themselves, just to show you any kind of references. And sometimes you can think during the movie, oh, that's why they put that clip in, you know? And so it sometimes they have interviews and things like that, and they'll have actual events, but they're definitely cinephiles. And so that's why I love Alamo Drafthouse so much. We talk about AMC because they have a subscription model where you can go see like 3 movies a week for like $20 a month or something like that, which no one does. And they make all their money from concessions. But, you know, one other thing about Alamo Drafthouse we like versus AMC is that Alamo Drafthouse used to at least have kind of a zero tolerance policy on talking and cell phones and stuff in the theater, which we both hate so much. Now that's been kind of hit or miss, but you know, my experience with AMC has been they have 100% tolerance of that sort of thing. So,
yeah, I'm not a big fan of AMC that much. So, also the Alamo Drafthouse serves food and liquor and beer, and I mean, I like that. I enjoy having a nice cold beverage while watching a movie. And one of my favorite things about that particular chain is that, like Chris said, they are cinephiles, and they will go back and they will show older movies or fan favorites, and they'll have these really good, awesome viewing experiences for you to go and enjoy.
Oh yeah. They had a Lord of the Rings marathon for the extended versions, and it was like almost all day, and they had first and second breakfasts and everything else, and they served us mimosas and like donuts and then it went on to the dinner and stuff, and they didn't even have to take breaks between the movies because the credits are all 30 minutes long. For each movie. So no, it was great, you know. And I've done I think they did The Whole Bloody Affair for Kill Bill, where they kind of cut the 2 movies together, and that was amazing, you know. So you know,
and here recently I really wanted to go because in January they were doing like this champagne movie watching experience of Steel Magnolias, and it was a quote along. She could just go and say everything out loud, and I was like, "This is perfect." I'm gonna go get
props for a lot of those.
Yes,
too.
I mean, it's just a really cool place, you know. And so, like in America, I would say that there's been a real shift toward like a dine-in experience when watching a movie. So we have tons of chains that offer meals and a full bar and things like that. So I think that's the way that America is going. Do you have theaters like that in Australia? I mean, I hope so. And I mean, let us know what you think about this, and tell us like what your experiences are, you know, down under. We'd like to know.
We got a new patron.
Yay!
Thank you, Loch Hightower, for becoming our newest patron. You comment a lot, and we really, really appreciate that, and we'd love you to keep on doing that. I hope you're enjoying all of the bonus content, the hours and hours and hours of bonus content that we have over there. If you've gotten a chance, let us know.
Yeah, so Facebook does this thing where they put people who comment a lot, and they call them like top fans or whatever, and Lachlan has been our top fan over on Facebook for quite some time.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Welcome to the family. We really appreciate it, and we hope you enjoy.
Horror news.
So I saw an article, and the headline caught my eye. It says Colin Minahan is set to direct what is believed to be a remake of Urban Legend. And this is, early 2000s, late 90s teen horror, right? And but Colin Minahan, this is the way I put it on there, is like my new favorite horror director. Every movie that he puts out, I love. So What Stains the Sand Red and What Keeps You Alive are 2 of my like recent favorites of his. And so I don't care what he's doing. I'm going to go watch it. And honestly, I liked that movie when I was younger. I had no problem with it. And could probably stand a remake. So there's really no news about anything else, though. It's just that he's going to make it.
Known for directing Annabelle, Wish Upon, and The Silence, John R. Leonetti is next on board to helm Lullaby, a horror film that will star Una Chaplin from Game of Thrones. She played the wife of, or the soon-to-be wife of the guy at the Red Wedding, and she got stabbed in the stomach when she was pregnant.
Oh, she was Rob
Stark's
fiance or whatever.
Yeah. She was on the show for maybe a season. But yeah, anyway, I thought that was super interesting.
Well, and it's supposed to be based on Lilith, right? Is what this movie is? Yeah.
Yeah. So I haven't seen too much of that in horror movies. I know that she's mentioned, and there's been a couple, but I think that's super interesting. And I think that she finds something that does summon, Lilith or whatever, but whatever that incantation is like super helpful to her life in some way or something. So it's an interesting twist on that whole thing. So it'll be interesting.
Well, do you remember that video game trailer that we had on Shooting the Flames a couple months ago for Diablo?
Yes.
That was Lilith too, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, I mean, it's a really underused mythological figure. I know it's from like Jewish mythology. It's Adam's first wife. And I mean, like the namesake of Lilith Fair and things like that. So hopefully we'll start seeing a little bit more of her in some horror movies.
I think she's also supposed to be the descendant of the White Witch from the Narnia series is Lilith.
Oh, really? Rob just watched those, and he was talking about reading the books, and I'm like, well, it's a whole biblical allegory. So we were talking about, because I had to read that in college. And
some of the best fiction comes from biblical allegory, as we know. Yes. In horror, too.
Agreed. So last up on our horror news, Eli Roth is set to direct a Borderlands adaptation, a post-apocalyptic horror land. I don't know what Borderlands is.
Okay, so Borderlands just came out with their third game about maybe like a year ago. And I never got into it, but I've seen people play it, and I played it a little bit multiplayer. But it's one of those post-apocalyptic worlds where there's like mutants and monsters and politics, and it's kind of like a gold rush for like I think alien artifacts or whatever is the thing in this story. So it's going to be really interesting seeing Eli Roth direct something like that, because that could really put his, I haven't seen him do much lately as far as directing. So I feel like it'll be really interesting to see what happens with his career and how well of an adaptation this is, because it's going to have to please, horror and sci-fi fans as well as, the people that are, frothing at the mouth for this game. So he has got a difficult task ahead of him.
Well, very much like Colin Minahan. I mean, like, I feel like Eli Roth can sort of do no wrong in my eyes. Like, I really like every movie that he makes for the most, I can't think of one that I disliked. Even that one, the last one he directed with Jack Black, like The House with the Clock in the Wall or whatever. Okay. Like, even that was good to me. And I don't typically like movies like that.
I haven't seen that.
So it's real family oriented. There's a lot of horror adjacency in there, though, but it was funny and it was cute. Okay. A departure for Eli Roth, but
didn't they have Cate Blanchett in it?
It did. Yes.
Oh. What an interesting pairing.
Yeah. Well, the three of them really was an interesting pairing. So, but yeah, I mean, like, I don't know anything about the game, so when he makes it, I'll definitely watch it. It'll be good to go in with, like, fresh eyes for me, I suppose. All right, so one last piece of news, and I'm sure that everyone already knows this by now, but we're going to count this as a win for horror for once. Parasite totally fucking cleaned up at the Oscars this year.
And there was so much anger about it. Did you see Trump's tweets about it?
Yes, that was so fucking stupid. What an idiot. I swear to God. He would ever watch that movie. Like, he knows how to read anyway. God. But I was watching the Oscars at a gay bar in Las Vegas, and I was having such a good time. And every time Parasite won something, I was just thrilled. I mean, I know this is like squarely horror adjacent, but I think a lot of the horror community really embraced that movie, and rightfully so. And it's an amazing film. I think it won like Best Picture, Best Director, Best Screenplay, Best International Film. Like, it really did clean up. And, we're always hoping for, some horror adjacent wins at the Oscars. And this year was just, a golden year for us.
Agreed.
So, congratulations.
Coming soon.
So, I watched a trailer for this movie called Run that's coming out on Mother's Day that stars Sarah Paulson from American Horror Story fame, where she plays like sort of this really terrible, overbearing mother, and her daughter is like trying to escape or starting to realize that something's wrong with her life and her upbringing. And I mean, in true Sarah Paulson fashion, she looks completely fucking terrifying in this movie.
No.
I'm getting all kinds of like Margaret White vibes from her.
Oh.
So.
Yeah, Sarah Paulson is always great in everything she does. So I can't wait just to at least appreciate the performance.
Yes. I mean, yeah, it may not be a good movie, but I know that Sarah Paulson always like acts her ass off whenever she's in something. Did you ever see 12 Years a Slave?
Yeah.
She's so good in that movie. She's such a bitch in that movie.
All she did was throw something across the room at someone's head. That's like the only scene I think she's in, besides like one or two others where she's kind of standing there.
She picked up that big heavy thing and just threw it at Lupita Nyong'o. It was just like, me and Rob were watching that movie together and I gasped. I was like, oh, what a bitch. Just like, God.
No, she did good. She was convincing. She sold, yet again, no small parts. And she sold that thing instantly, just with her face. You know, just a slight change in how she holds herself, just with that smug contempt on her face. Ugh.
God, she's a good actress.
She really is. Next up, we've got Spiral from the Book of Saw. And I have no idea how the fuck this thing is happening, because this is produced and starring Chris Rock and Samuel L. Jackson. Like, what?
So, yeah, some news came out last year. I think we may have had it on a very, very early Shooting the Flames episode, like way back when we first started doing these. We talked about how Chris Rock was going to be producing a Saw movie, there was no word about what it was supposed to be, if it was going to be a remake, a reboot, or what. But this seems like they're just sort of borrowing from Saw a little bit, because it's not Jigsaw.
Well, I'm not sure. Like, I lost track after the third one. And I think there's been 18. So I have no idea. Not to belittle the Saw series for you fans. I just haven't seen anything after the third one. But it looks kind of like very much its own thing. But at the same time, I had to know. So I looked, and it turns out that I guess Chris Rock met someone from Lionsgate at a wedding. And they just like hit it off or whatever. And so he's a big fan of the series. And so he was like, hey, here's my take on it. I'm really, passionate about this series, and I'd like to bring some like comedy to it, but also like keep it really reverential to the series. And he got Samuel L. on board, and the rest is history, I guess. We'll see what happens with it.
I mean, it looks really dark and gritty. It looks very like Seven, right?
Yeah.
And I'm getting lots of Seven vibes from it. And honestly, I'm just going to go see it just from that one line from the trailer where Samuel L. Jackson's like, you want to play a game, motherfucker? I'm just like, hell yeah.
He was contractually obligated to say that.
No.
I'm sure it was his idea too.
Get this motherfucking saw puppet off this motherfucking plane. I mean, my God. I can't wait. Lastly is a trailer for a movie called Human Capital, which has some big name stars in it.
It does. It's got Liev Schreiber and Marissa Tomei, Peter Sarsgaard, as well as Maya Hawke that we saw in, I guess, Stranger Things Season 3, and she is Uma and Ethan's son. Or daughter. She's Uma and Ethan's daughter. Why is that funny?
I don't know. Shouldn't look particularly managed.
It looks like a straight up thriller. They're keeping things pretty close to the chest here as far as like what exactly is going on. But it looks like, there's like two main plots, right? There's one that's going on with the adults, and there's one that's kind of going on with the kids. There looks like there might be a little bit of real life horror with like an affluenza thing going on. And what I mean, if you don't know what affluenza is, it's when a rich kid can get away with anything, and there's cover-ups and blah blah blah. So, yeah. I don't know. It's I'm not really sure what's going on in this trailer, but it looks like a lot of good acting is, and it looks dark and thrillerish. So I'm on board.
Yeah, all things that I like in movies. Plus, I mean, any chance to watch Marissa Tomei, like, she breaks down so well in movies, right? So, I mean...
Not as good as Sarah Paulson.
I love my cousin Vinny, but anytime I get a chance to see her do some dramatic work, I just love it. So I'm totally on board for that.
Yep. So as usual, we've got all of the trailers for these links. Wait, reverse that. We've got all the links for these trailers in the show notes, so check those out.
Recommendations.
So this is the part where Chris and I talk about some movies or TV shows that we have watched recently. Who wants to go first?
I'll go first. I picked up the 4K rendition of Dr. Sleep that includes the director's cut Blu-ray. So for those of you that want a 4K version of the director's cut, I'm sorry that you're probably not going to get it because it is showing up in the Blu-ray. However, the good news is that the Blu-ray is just as good or better of a presentation as far as color contrast and the look and feel of it. I mean, even the Blu-ray reviewers for it that give ratings on such things gave it a 5 out of 5 stars, and they were frankly shocked that they were able to get that much quality onto a Blu-ray. So don't hesitate to pick this up. The director's cut is split into chapters, right? And it adds 30 minutes of time to an already kind of longish movie, right? But it just feels more organic. It feels much more flowy in a way. It flows better from beginning to end, and it's a superior experience. I already rated the first one like a 4 or 4.5 or something, maybe a 5-star. I've forgotten. But this is even better. And so if you want the definitive version, check out the director's cut because they knew what they were doing when they were shooting it. And they have completed effects, completed music, everything for it as if it was the definitive. And I think it is. The only reason it wasn't released was because it was just too long to put into theaters. So check it out.
I'm certainly going to. I cannot wait to watch it. So it's on my queue to purchase. And when I have a moment to sit quietly and enjoy the thing, I'm going to. So like we mentioned earlier, talking about Lachlan's comment from Facebook, I watched the Sonata. So this is a trailer that we talked about just last month. And we thought that the trailer looked awesome, that it had some promise. We were hoping for maybe some sort of like religious horror in it. And it's so disappointing. It's like one of the most boring movies that I've seen in a very long time. There's just not a whole lot going on, really. And what is going on is super predictable. I kind of liked the main actress in it. Her name escapes me, but she was decent. What's sad, though, is that I think that this is Rutger Hauer's last movie. Oh. And he just didn't get to go out on a high note. You know, I mean, like, he's enjoyable in it. Like, he is in everything that he's in. But the movie itself, to me, was very lackluster and, like I said, very predictable and kind of didn't make any sense. So, I don't know, just a whole lot bad going for it. I think on Letterboxd they gave it like 2.5 stars or maybe just 2 stars.
Well, actually, Rutger Hauer has 2 more films coming out posthumously. So he's got a movie called Emperor, where he plays John the Constant, and there's another one called Break, where he plays a character called Ray. So those are yet to be released.
Well, good. I don't want this to be the very last thing that people see of him. So, because it was not a good movie. Now, of course, I mean, like, I say that, and I encourage everybody to go and watch these movies, even if, I mean, just because we don't like it doesn't mean that you won't. Go check it out. I need to message Lachlan and see if he watched it, or Lachlan, reach out to us on Facebook and let us know what you think of Sonata if you watched it.
Next up, I've been watching the new Star Trek show Picard. I was a big The Next Generation fan as a kid, teenager, adult, whatever. And I have to say, it's really good. And there are some pretty horrific, horror adjacent stuff in there that would have never have been on the original Star Trek series, any of them. There is some pretty nasty stuff going on with the Borg, as usual. That's our source of a lot of body horror in Star Trek. And it's not pretty. But I have to say that the show is actually pretty good, and I have a lot of hope for it. So I'm looking forward to more episodes. I think it's on episode 4 now, has been released as of this recording. So I think we've got 3 or 4 more before the end of this first season. So I'm excited to see where it goes.
I'm really excited to watch this. I'm just going to wait until all of the episodes are finished. I'd rather just be able to sit down and binge it. My husband is watching it episodically just like you are, and he's likes using my account. Yeah. Yeah, I know. So I'm just gonna wait until y'all are done, and then I'll just sit down and watch the whole thing from start to finish. I think I would enjoy it a lot more that way. But I know both you and he told me that 7 of 9 is finally back, and I think that's what I most want to see in Picard.
And she's part of one of those horrible, horrible scenes, but straight out of Saw. But she survives it.
Good. That's all I need. So to wrap up the rest of my Oscar catch-up that I started talking about last month in Shooting the Flames, I finally caught what I consider to be the best 2 movies of 2019 before the Oscars, and those are Jojo Rabbit and Little Women. And I know that both of these are not horror films, obviously, but literally, I could not stop talking about these 2 movies. I recommended them to everybody, like, ad nauseum after I watched them. And everyone should go out and watch Jojo Rabbit and Little Women, for sure. 2 of the best movies from 2019, if not the best. In fact, it's kind of hard for me to, like, say which one I liked most. I may have a tie for, like, number 1 for last year.
Do you want to talk about a little bit what Jojo Rabbit's about?
Yeah. So Jojo Rabbit is about, it's a comedy about Nazis. And I didn't even want to watch this movie for that reason. I was like, oh God, that just sounds terrible. And like something I shouldn't be laughing at. But it's about a small kid who's very nationalist in Germany during World War II. And his imaginary best friend is Hitler. Yep. And so all this kid wants to be is a Nazi and to go fight in the war. And as it turns out, his mother is like an anti-Nazi sympathizer, and she is housing a Jew in their home.
Well, it's directed by Taika Waititi, who, obviously is loved in this nook or these nooks of our podcast. And, of course, he is responsible for things like Thor Ragnarok, which we both loved, as well as What We Do in the Shadows, which is famed in the horror space. So, yeah, I definitely want to check that out. I'm kind of ashamed that I haven't already, but unless it's streaming yet, is it streaming?
Yeah, I think you can purchase it or rent it VOD. Okay. But yeah, there's a lot of laughter through tears in this movie. Like, I was really like guffawing with laughter watching it. It's just so good. The performance from that little kid is amazing. And I mean, oftentimes I think that like performances from young children are kind of hit or miss, or you can like really give all those props to the director for getting it out of them. But this kid's a natural. I mean, he's good. He was great in this movie. Yeah. Scarlett Johansson was phenomenal in this movie, as was Taika Waititi playing Hitler. It's not something that you would think of like laughing at Hitler, but I mean, it was a really enjoyable, very touching movie. Yeah, and I suggest everyone go watch it. Little Women. Obviously is based on the classic novel, and it's like the gobbledygillionth version of it, but by far the best version of Little Women I've ever seen, directed by Greta Gerwig, who was robbed this year at the Oscars. She deserved a nomination for Best Director. And, I mean, all the acting was phenomenal, especially Florence Pugh. She got nominated for Best Supporting Actress for this, and she was as good in this movie as she was in Midsommar, if not maybe just a little bit better in Little Women, I think.
So lastly, I'm going to discuss a show that I actually just finished called The Expanse. And I think we've talked about it a little bit before on Shooting the Flames. And I think I had tried to watch it a couple of years ago, and I just got to like episode 4 and I was like, can't do it. But we were also still in the middle of like Game of Thrones and all these other TV shows that were kind of wrapping up. So now that I've gotten past that, I decided to kind of revisit because it's just gotten such good reviews. The story of the series is that it was on Sci-Fi Channel, I guess, and it was there for 3 seasons and it got canceled because of some weird distribution limitations that it had internationally. And then it got picked up by Amazon Prime after a huge letter writing campaign by the fans, including a lot of celebrities. Like Patton Oswalt and a bunch of other people. But if you really are needing to scratch that itch for something like Game of Thrones or Battlestar Galactica or Lovecraftian horror, it's all of those things combined into one. And after like the 4th or 5th episode, and you make that kind of investment, much like all these other series we've been talking about that are starting up, this one is also based on novels called Leviathan Wakes. Ooh. And it is absolutely outstanding. I'm convinced it's one of the best, if not the best, series on television right now. And Amazon has picked up for season 5, which is just wrapped filming, I believe. But it stars Thomas Jane.
I love Thomas Jane.
Yeah, and Stephen Strait, as well as a bunch of other people that are amazing. But my favorite is Shohreh Aghdashloo, who was in, I think she was a a professional witness, material witness, I think, in The Exorcism of Emily Rose. And she's been in like The House of Sand and Fog. She's a Pakistani actress, but she plays like a leader of the government who cusses like a freaking sailor, and it's amazing to watch her work. And
she's so good in House of Sand and Fog.
It just reminds me so much of Game of Thrones and Battlestar and everything I loved about those, the politics and the tense intrigue and the action, as well as what really in the show of Game of Thrones should have been this overarching horror, you know, that ends up kind of like, you know, collapsing like a flan in a cupboard or a fart in a wind. But some real like sci-fi and horror and body horror that I have never seen on anything before. And pretty mind-blowing stuff as you go through it. No spoilers here. But I would definitely recommend watching this series because I'm not hearing enough people talk about it. And it's quite amazing.
Well, I mean, if you compare it to Battlestar Galactica, then I'm certainly on board because I wasn't really wanting to watch that, and we watched that together, right? Or at least we started watching it together, yeah. And I just loved it. So, you know, maybe I should let my inner nerd out a little bit and
all of
give
those
it a shot.
moments that you love from Battlestar Galactica are just as good, and moments like that in The Expanse, as well as things like Game of Thrones. All those moments that you loved about Game of Thrones, all of that is in The Expanse. Like I said, with some gigantic, epic, zoom out, galactic, cosmic, Lovecraftian horror, which is
I'm all about
really amazing. So,
well, I have one more movie I wanted to talk about, and I hope that Chris is pleased with this announcement because he and I have been friends for almost 10 years, and he recommends a lot of things for me to watch, and I recommend a lot of things for him to watch, and he's a much better friend, and he watches a lot more things that I recommend than what he recommends to me. So last night I sat down and I watched Snowpiercer.
finally.
God, it was so fucking good.
Thank you. God damn it. How was Tilda Swinton?
Tilda Swinton was so good.
I know. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm officially on board with Tilda Swinton now. I withdraw everything that I have said about that woman. She's so good in this movie. She looks ridiculous, and I love her now.
Yeah.
Actually, so, I mean, after watching the Suspiria remake and then seeing her in The Dead Don't Die, right? She was like the one good thing about that movie. And then watching her in this, I was just like, you know what? I've been incredibly harsh on Tilda. I think I've been wrong. So I need to go back and rewatch some other Tilda movies because I love her now. So
she's some of my favorite things about a lot of other like horror adjacent, like that Keanu Reeves movie. What was it that she was in? Constantine. And she plays like this androgynous.
She was in Constantine?
Yeah, Archangel. She plays Gabriel, and
wow.
she's so good in that. And now you need to see Doctor Strange. You really, really do.
I do. I need to watch that, and I also haven't seen. We need to talk about Kevin. So I think she's in that movie, right?
Yeah,
I don't know.
It'd be interesting to see what you think of that one. It's kind of a downer.
So, well, I mean, I'm okay with a downer.
Yeah.
But, yeah, so we need to have a longer conversation about Snowpiercer. So maybe one day we'll do that off mic and see if there's some interest in having an episode about it. Because I definitely thought that it could be considered a horror adjacent movie. If
like
not a horror
all of
movie.
his films. And I need to see his other big monster movie that he did.
Oh, The Host? The Host is good.
I need to see The Host. But there's just like any of his films, it seems like there's a lot of depths to deep dive into. You know, so those are definitely candidates for our monthly deep dives.
Yeah, I really, really, really enjoyed this movie. I think I gave it like 4 stars on Letterboxd, only because I think I liked the first like 2/3 of the movie more than the last. But it was really enjoyable. And Chris Evans is good. He's a talented actor.
He is.
I mean, I know we say that every time we see him in a movie. At least me, I'm like, I keep forgetting that he's not just a pretty face, because he really doesn't have that pretty of a face in this movie. He's just acting.
Yeah.
So it was a fantastic movie. And so I apologize for not taking your recommendation a lot sooner. I have to go watch more movies now that you've told me to watch.
Yay.
Well, guys, I think that just about wraps up the Shooting the Flames episode for March. Like we said at the beginning, we really appreciate all of your comments and questions. So keep those coming on social media at The Film Flamers on Twitter, Facebook, or even Instagram.
And now Letterboxd. As well as emailing us at tiredqueens@filmflamers.com like Nikki did. Thank you so much. And you can call us on our hotline, please, at 972-666-7733. Leave us a voicemail and we'll play it on the air. As you notice, we didn't have a voicemail this month. We'd really love to have one. So call that number and leave us a message and we'll respond to it.
And we'd really love to read some more reviews in April for Shooting the Flames. So head over to Apple Podcasts, leave us a little review and a 5-star rating. We'll read that right here on Shooting the Flames. We're glad that we got to list off a new patron this month, and we'd like to have some more names to read off next month. So head over to patreon.com/thefilmflamers to find all of our bonus content.
And this month on Patreon, we are definitely going to be adding some new things. This month, we're actually beginning to be covering that movie that we talked about in our top 10 and history of slashers, which is 13 Women.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing this one.
Me too.
On the regular feed, though, we have some things coming for you. We're going to be deep diving into George A. Romero's Dawn of the Dead. So last March, we covered Night of the Living Dead, and we're just pressing forward in the series.
And we're also going to be giving you Dawn of the Dead Remake by Zack Snyder.
That's right. 2 deep dives this month, guys. So look forward to that. And like always, we'll have a hot take coming out.
We're hoping to cover Invisible Man.
Oh, yeah. I'm really looking forward to that, too. So, March should be an exciting month. So, guys, thank you for listening to Shooting the Flames. And until next time, sweet dreams.